So Aaron Rodgers will be ready to go next season. Can't say the same, unfortunately, about Jameson Williams, who has been suspended 6 games for violating the NFL's gambling policy. As I understand this, guys, the problem was Jameson Williams was gambling within the Lions facility, which is the illegal part by NFL rules of this. If he was not on site, he would be allowed to bet on non-football related sports. There's a lot of weird ticky-tacky rules with
a lot of weird.
gambling.
And I actually think there is a sports book at Ford Field. Believe it or not.
This is like the Bradbury holding call.
Yeah, it is.
Go across the street to Motor City Casino.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. The rules are the rules,
Not
and
great,
he violated them, and he's suspended for 6 games. So we're going to have 6 games without Jameson Williams. And I think the fact is that Amon-Ra St. Brown had a monster season last year, really without Jameson Williams, who played limited snaps all year long. I mean, I have at wide receiver 7, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, I think he's just going to continue to get massive target share on an offense that we think is, taking another step under Ben Johnson, their offense coordinator, that they were able to keep this offseason. He had almost a 30% target share in his healthy games last season. At least 9 targets in 12 of 16 games. I mean, just massive. And so when you think about who else is there without Jameson Williams, it's Marvin Jones, it's Josh Reynolds, it's Khalif Raymond, and obviously then Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yeah, and remember, Hawkinson is in Minnesota. So I do think that, if there's a positive to this, it's just going to continue to be massive volume for Amon-Ra St. Brown. As for Williams, he's one of those, barely top 50 lottery tickets. He's going to miss 6 games, but the talent's off the chart. We think he would be, if he were coming out this year, Connor, he'd be the number 1 wide receiver taken.
Yeah, I think pretty comfortably.
Yeah. And so, as we were talking about with Alan Lazard, if I'm in that 40 to 50 range of wide receivers, I'd much rather take a flyer on Jameson Williams as wide receiver 4 or 5 for me, and that's fine. Put him on IR. I'm just going to put him on bench, depending on your league rules, for 6 games. And then when he comes back, we've seen, whether it was moments with Josh Reynolds, we've seen kind of moments of a non-Amon-Ra St. Brown receiver on the Lions have fantasy value.
Yeah, and the good thing is that he's healthy, so there's no physical ramp up in terms of recovering from an injury. He should be good to go when he slots in. And obviously, he needs time to acclimate to the offense and all of that. But at the same time, we've seen guys, with that talent come in immediately and produce, like Olave, like Garrett Wilson, like Jefferson and Chase. He should be good to go. I mean, we're going to do a week 2 waiver wire show on Josh Reynolds, picking him up, and then we're going to do a drop show in week 7 on Josh Reynolds. That's already coming. But yeah, it's going to be the Sun God show.
But I think this actually, as it relates to ADP, I just think Jameson Williams will be an afterthought in drafts in August.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen much of him. He's going to miss 6 games. The Lions, and I do think Williams is kind of an interesting sleeper because the talent's off the chart, and it is a team that has no problem chucking it deep, which is what they will do when they get Williams back.
Barry, coming out of Combine, in your rumors article, you had alluded to Javonte Williams, how severe that injury was last year, and that the timeline on Javonte Williams going into 2023 was a bit questionable. And Broncos GM George Paton said on Javonte Williams with the ACL, he'll be back this season at some point, but doesn't know when. This is very, very unclear. How do you even begin to project Javonte Williams in the fantasy landscape this year?
Ideally, you don't. I mean, if I'm doing a best ball draft right now, then sure, by all means. You want to take a flyer and hope that you get more games out of him than not. But we've seen running backs coming back from ACL, and the Adrian Petersons of the world are few and far between. Generally speaking, even like Saquon, a physical beast like Saquon, he lost a step. It took him a while to regain the burst that Saquon had his rookie year. And so my expectation here is that even if Javonte Williams comes back, I think it's going to be time for him to kind of get back up to speed, if you will. And he's in Denver with a new head coach that didn't draft him. So he's got to sort of earn the trust of Sean Payton and the new coaching staff. And, oh, by the way, Sean Payton traditionally has liked to use multiple running backs. I mean, how many seasons would we be frustrated we had Alvin Kamara? Alvin Kamara, who was, the elite of the elite, and here comes Mark Ingram, or Taysom Hill or whatever. Peyton likes to be creative with his running backs and his running game. And so, to me, Javonte Williams is somebody that you draft, again, hopefully we'll have more clarity as we get into August when drafts actually start. But for me, he's just not somebody. He's like the ultimate lottery ticket. I would much rather have at ADP Samaje Perine, who they went out actively signed, who I think is good, who doesn't have the name value or the sizzle of Javonte Williams, who's healthy, and he's Peyton's guy. So I just, you know what I mean? Like my guess is that Williams would go ahead of or in the same range of Perine. I think Perine's going to be the better value fantasy-wise this year.
I think even regardless of that, I think I'd rather just have Samaje Perine on my team, irrespective of ADP, than Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, don't know when he's coming back, don't know what he's going to look like. Perine at least is a proven commodity, and you're pretty confident that you're going to get a good chunk of the first half of the season, at least, where he is the guy. So I might just rather have Samaje Perine on my team.
The thing that I heard at the Combine from a pretty good source was just like, they're worried he's going to miss the entire season. This is Javonte Williams, like this season. And so, Peyton is saying, like, George Peyton, the general manager is saying, like, no, he'll be back this season. We just don't know when. But that could be week 17.
Yeah.
That could be, hey, first round of the playoffs. Like, we just have no idea. The fact that there is, quote unquote, no timetable for his return, which is what he's basically saying, like, that has to, kind of freak you out a little bit.
And to add to that, they're in a division with the Chiefs. The Raiders are going to be better, we think, and of course the Chargers.
Yeah.
What if he's ready, say, first week in November, and they're out of it? Why are you running Javonte Williams into the ground with a season that's already over for you? Yeah. There is a very real chance Javonte Williams has no significant impact on this fantasy season.
Yep,
100%.
Agreed.
So we'll be keeping an eye on that. More news on the injury front. Tua Tagovailoa said he considered retirement after suffering multiple brain injuries in 2022. While obviously we're hoping the best for Tua as he continues to play, this also fuels the Tom Brady buzz again when asked about coming out of retirement and playing for the Dolphins at a conference, not a Matthew Berry hosted party, a conference. Tom Brady did not directly answer the question.
Yeah, do we have that? Do we have that video of him?
No, we are not going to show that.
But around it. I will tell you this, like. So when I interviewed Tom Brady, my buddy, my BFF Tom Brady, when I interviewed Tom Brady, what I will tell you, I asked him that direct question. I just said, like, is there any chance we see you this year? Like, I didn't ask him the direct Miami question, but I said, is there any chance we see you this year? And he was just like, no, because he had said something like, here's how it actually played out. So Gronk is on the stage as well. So the party that I did through Autograph with Tom Brady also had Leonard Fournette and Rob Gronkowski, Buster Scher.
Before or after you mossed Gronk?
Oh, yeah, this is before I mossed Gronk.
Okay, so the vibes were still immaculate.
And so shout out to my buddy Buster Scher, who's a great collector. But no, in terms of football players, it was Gronk and Fournette and Brady. And so we were talking about Gronk, and I mentioned something about Gronk, and he, and Gronk was, they were going back and forth on stage. It was fun. And, we were like, Gronk, is there any chance you're coming out of retirement? And he's just like, nah, I'm having fun. And Brady said, well, you could still play. So Brady, like, sort of, making fun of Gronk, like, you still could play. And to which I turned to Tom, I said, well, so could you, and got a good reaction from the crowd. And he's just like, no, and I said, Tom, is there any chance at all that we see you on a football field this year? Any chance? And he was just like, no chance. He goes, listen, the quote he said was, it was a beautiful quote. He just said, look, my kids have spent a lot of time watching me on the field. It's time for me to watch them on theirs. And so, in essence, basically saying he wants to spend more time with his family, more time with his kids in the sports and watching them play the sports that they play. Never say never, I suppose. The other vibe I got from him, like, because I asked him how retirement was going, and he says it hasn't hit me yet. He's like, when it's really going to hit me is like in August when all my buddies are reporting. He's like, right now is usually a fairly slow time for me. So he's like, as we get closer, I'm sure that's when it's going to hit me, and I'm gonna miss the routine. So could you see a scenario where he starts missing the routine and Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, makes him some crazy offer that he can't refuse? Sure, I suppose so. But I thought a lot was made out of that moment at the conference where I know he didn't directly say no, but
the tough thing with Miami is that
I think it is more likely than not that Tom Brady does not play this year.
Yeah.
That's what I will say.
Indeed. And the tough thing with Miami is that they're going to go into the season with Tua as the starter. If Tua is if he gets hurt again, it's going to be in a game, you would think. And so is Tom Brady just going to upend his life in the middle of the season to come quarterback for the Dolphins in Week 7? It just doesn't, like this kind of stuff. There's been a lot of talk about, there was talk about like Breeze going back to the Saints or Phil Rivers coming in for the Colts. Like it just seems to never materialize for good reason.
Well, and by the way, the other thing is about Mike McDaniel, and Brady's a different animal, right? But you think about the playoff game against the Bills this last year. Tua wasn't able to play. Teddy Bridgewater was cleared to play, but they still went with Skylar Thompson. And the reason McDaniel said is like basically unless they can practice all week, like Bridgewater got cleared I think in Wednesday or Thursday of that week. And even though Bridgewater was much more the experienced quarterback than Skylar Thompson, who was a day 3 pick and a rookie quarterback at that, he still wanted to go with Skylar Thompson because the way McDaniels was like, I need somebody that's here the whole time. So again, Brady's a different animal, but is he going to want to, right to your point, like all of a sudden it's week 10 and like, hey, Tom Brady, can you get off your couch and come save our season or something like that? I find it hard to believe. I think they're committed to Tua Tagovailoa. And by the way, not for nothing, I think that like Mike McDaniel might kind of have the attitude of like, I can scheme up anyone. He was a couple of he was a couple of dumb penalties away from beating the Bills in Buffalo with Skylar Thompson.
Yeah, one deep ball to Tirico Hill, and they win that game and eliminate the Bills as 14-point dogs.
Skylar Thompson played pretty well. Like he coached those guys up. Like they almost went into Buffalo and beat the Bills with Skylar Thompson. And so, anyway, as for Tua Tagovailoa, we hope for the best. I think for me, I know I've gotten a lot of questions about him from a dynasty perspective when this news came out that he considered retirement. He's obviously, it's been a really tough year for him. Is there concern about him from a dynasty perspective? For me, I say no. Again, you never know what's going to happen with a player's career, and his health is the most important. So I would, to the extent Tua's watching this, hey, Tua, if doctors are recommending you call it quits, please call it quits. We all pray for your health. But I think about some players, Matthew Stafford, and again, it wasn't concussions, but Matthew Stafford early in his career kept getting hurt, and everyone was like, Matthew Stafford can't stay healthy. And then it was just like, he just got unlucky, right? Or Brandon Cooks. There was concern about Brandon Cooks, who had a number of concussions early in his career, and they were like, he's Brandon Cooks. Same, a lot of the conversation that's happened around Tua, and he hasn't had one since. It's been been quite a few years, I believe, since Cooks last suffered a concussion. So, I get it. I sort of feel like it was just a weird, fluky year, and the NFL continues to make progress in protecting quarterbacks, protecting all their players, especially from head injury.
Yeah, I think there's one aspect of, he could just be one hit away and then it just might be over. There's also the other aspect where it's not like every quarterback is like a 15% chance to get concussed every week. Like it's pretty rare that you get a hit that bad. And I think there is also with Tua, I think he's talked about it, there's a technique aspect to it as well that he's working on improving. And yeah, you just pray that there's not going to be the bad luck that he had this year, which was scary.
Staying with the theme of today's show, which is AFC East quarterbacks, Josh Allen said the Bills need to put Gabe Davis in better situations in 2023. More specifically, Allen said the team should put Davis into more catch-and-run situations rather than using him strictly as boundary and downfield pass catcher. Jay, would you agree with that?
I just think they need to run a bit more of a scheme in general in Buffalo. It just seems like, can you stop just telling Josh to put the Superman cape on and go and do stuff?
It does seem a lot of like that. A lot of sitting around and waiting for Josh to do something ridiculous.
Backyard football.
Yeah. What's the Chiefs offense and everything that is schemed up for Kelsey and McKinnon, and it's everything there compared to what the Bills were doing, particularly in the playoff game against the Bengals, where it seemed like they had no idea what was going on. And so the talent is there with Gabe Davis. He was banged up all last season, which is the thing to always remember with these guys. Like, Gabe Davis is one who was injured all year. Ramondre Stevenson was another guy who's just on the injury report all the time. Like, that has to be factored in when these guys aren't right. And so when you just think about the talent and the fact that they need him to produce, I would expect a better season from Gabe, but I can understand why managers would.
Well, you see it there on your screen, right? You see it there on your screen. Those are numbers that basically back up what Josh Allen said, right? Like a 15.3 yard average depth of target, which was highest among all wide receivers in the NFL, right? But a 51% catch rate, which was the lowest among qualified wide receivers. 47%, almost half of his targets last year, came on deep passes, 15 yards more downfield. So to Josh Allen's point, like they basically just used him as a deep threat, and he's got a lot more to his game. And to your point, Jay, one of the things that came out of the combine that I thought was fascinating, both, we knew he was banged up, right? And I think he missed one game off the top of my head. But both Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott at their press conferences, I specifically asked both guys about Gabe Davis, because going into last year, there was all this, optimism after the 4-touchdown game against the Chiefs in the playoffs, 2 seasons ago, and sort of what happened. And both said, in separate things, like, well, he suffered that high ankle sprain. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. High ankle sprain. And I went back and I looked at all the news reports. And at the time, it was just reported that he had an ankle injury and that he'd hurt, like a little bit, like he was a little bit banged up. But a high ankle injury for any player, but especially a speed wide receiver, is significant. So the fact that he didn't miss much time tells you just how hobbled out there that he was if he legit had a high ankle sprain, which is usually a 4 to 6 week injury, Connor.
Yeah, absolutely.
The game that he missed was week 2 against the Titans. So he did it early, and so he would have been dealing with it the whole season.
Lingering.
So I think it's a huge caveat for his year.
Right, and if you continue to play on it, you're not getting better.
Yes.
There you go, Dr. Matty for you right there. But that's just so you know, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Dr. Matty.
Dr. Fried Chicken.
Dr. Fried Chicken.
Everyone's favorite doctor.
I would go see Dr. Fried Chicken. By the way, do not steal it, any of you animals. I'm going to copyright that. That's my new fast food chain that I'm going to start, Dr. Fried Chicken.
The logos are endless possibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Steven said they're working on it.
Okay, good.
Fried chicken. Intravenous drip of fried chicken.
How about
from the dock.
How about Applebee's? Can we make that a meal? The Dr. Fried Chicken's platter.
Yes.
Yeah, the Dr. Fried Chicken's fried chicken platter or something.
Wings
at Applebee's.
Chicken tenders, buffalo chicken bites, the whole spread. Popcorn chicken.
Come on now, let's go. Let's eat good in the neighborhood. Come on, Applebee's. Let's make this happen.
This is free consulting for you,
Yeah, I'm
Applebee's.
just
So I'm
saying.
here all day. All right. So one more lingering effect of this, the Athletics' Joe Buscaglia, he does a great job covering the Bills.
He does.
He's covered them for a long time.
Long time.
He believes the Bills will take a wide receiver in the first round. That would have an interesting effect on Gabe Davis' projection because a first-round wide receiver for Buffalo, I mean, the balance of Diggs, the balance of a little bit Dawson Knox, but obviously the balance of Gabe Davis and that first-round player would really change things, I think, for him.
I guess. I don't know. Not
From a
really for me.
target
Who's the wide receiver? I guess is what exactly.
Yeah.
Like, is it a slot guy? Because they try to make and I actually think they have something in the Shakur. But
I do too.
But the fact of the matter is whether it was they brought back Cole Beasley last year towards the end of the year. They planned on Jamison Crowder. He gets hurt in preseason, so they didn't really have a great solution at the slot. And so if they draft a slot guy, then I'm not worried about it. If
It doesn't take him off the field.
Right, it doesn't
Yeah.
take him off the field. Like it's the way that offense runs is that it's Diggs and Davis on the outside always for the majority of the routes. So I actually sort of hope they draft a wide receiver because that's going to depress Gabe Davis's ADP even more. I can't quit Gabe Davis. It's fried chicken and Gabe Davis. Those are the two things I can't quit. I love them both. It is what it is.
Oh boy.
Mike Williams East lives on.
Yeah. Well,
I just, you guys know, Gabe Davis is one of my guys. I love Gabriel Davis. What can I tell you?
one thing is that, so Joe Buscaglia says they're going to draft a wide receiver. The Bills to use their first pick on a wide receiver is plus 390. So if Joe Buscaglia is saying that, that's just a bet. Like just go off of that plus 390. That's just too big. Who would they take? Pick 27 if they're going to use a first round pick.
Probably not Quentin Johnson, right? I mean, JSN should be gone by now.
JSN will be gone.
Say Flowers.
I was going to save this for the end, but let's get to it now. I'm convinced the Bills are moving up in this draft.
Okay.
Ooh.
So, because if you're taking a wide receiver, right, you look at the landscape. The Giants at 25 might be taking a wide receiver. Chargers, Ravens, maybe.
Yeah.
I think they'd rather get up and get the number. Now, JSN, that offense would be unbelievable. I don't think they can get there to get him. Green Bay at 13, New England at 14, Jets at 15, all JSN territory, if not earlier. But I think if they want size, Quentin Johnson, probably have to get ahead of the Giants. If they want a slot, Zay Flowers from Boston College.
Zay Flowers is pretty interesting.
That would be the one that fits.
Zay Flowers on the Bills would be
fun.
pretty interesting.
That's the
That'd
fit
be
that
fun.
makes the most sense.
It's like the wide receiver parallel to Bijan on the Bengals. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So
It'd be a lot of fun. What's weird is, and Joe does a great job, and he's certainly much more tied into the Bills than I am. But like one rumor I kept hearing was like that they want to do a tight end. because it's a really, I mean, again,
It's a great tight end class.
It's a great tight end class, and they've gotten some out of Knox, but whether they would give them two tight end sets, and they could mix and match, and Knox has dealt with injuries as well. I don't know, could be. That would be interesting too. Like, right,
still a pass
one of those,
catcher.
right?
I mean,
exactly. That's my point. Is
kind of
it
get
one of those
best of both?
Yeah, I don't know.
Plus
block-
1,100. Plus 1,100 to take a tight end.
All right.
Back both. Plus
Yeah.
390. Get a pass catcher. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Endorsed.
One more note in the AFC here, guys. The Chiefs GM Brett Veach said the team still loves free agent Jerick McKinnon. Veach has also said they're going to wait till after the draft to make a decision on Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's fifth-year option. So besides Isaiah Pacheco, a lot of mystery in the Chiefs' backfield right now.
It is, and it also sort of doesn't matter.
Right.
Just let me know who's back there.
Yeah, and then
I
we'll
mean, like, and
assess
that
the
guy,
value.
that guy will have fantasy value.
And it could be through the draft.
It could be through the draft as well. It feels. I'm surprised the Jerick McKinnon thing hasn't happened yet. Like, he's been a good fit on that team.
Yeah, where else is
he
he
played
gonna
great
go?
in the playoffs. He was great last year for them. He was great, especially not just fantasy-wise, but he was great down the stretch for Mahomes as an option out of the backfield, especially when you think about how many of the pass catchers on that team have left the team. And again, as long as you have Kelsey and Mahomes, it sort of doesn't matter. Like, I know they're excited about Kadarius Toney. I know they're excited about Sky Moore. Year 2 of each of those guys in Kansas City. Obviously, Toney is a year 3 player, but doesn't feel like there's a massive market for McKinnon, and that just feels like I don't know why it's taking so long to get done.
Feels like he's got a lot more value to the Chiefs than any other team because of the rapport that he had with Mahomes. What price kind of that Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets that fifth-year option picked up? Surely it's not going to happen.
I don't think that's happening. No. It doesn't make any sense. No. I mean,
as long as we're talking about doesn't make any sense, by the way, Commanders did not pick up the fifth-year option on Chase Young. Like, what the hell?
that could be the next Josh Jacobs not pick.
Or Daniel Jones.
Or Daniel Jones, where you're like, wait a minute, why didn't we do this?
So first off, by the way, if you go back to that draft, the Commanders had the number 1 pick. They were called something else then, but they had the number 1 pick, but then the Miami game, the stupid Miami game, which they win, like, because they won the Miami game, and as a result of winning the Miami game, like the dumbest thing in the world, could you have just lost that game? They have the number 2 pick, so the Bengals get Joe Burrow. So again, the Commanders, who are once again hoping that they have something in Sam Howell, and we've had to suffer through 2 years of Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke and everything. Like, we should have had Joe Burrow. But no, we had to beat Miami in a meaningless game in that year. And now, and everyone's just like, all right, well, we missed out on Joe Burrow, but Chase Young could be LT. He could be like this dominant defensive player. And now we're not picking up his fifth-year option. I get that he's been hurt, but whatever.
He's really good.
He's really good.
He is
It's
really good.
baffling to me.
And not only that, like, even if you're sick of him, I don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? But even if there's for whatever reason you guys don't believe he fits the culture, the scheme, or whatever, but he's a valuable trade asset. Like, pick up the fifth-year option, and then you can.
You have options.
Then you have options. Then you can trade him. Like, I don't.
He was
New ownership can't come quick enough.
He was Defensive Rookie of the Year in his rookie season. Then he got hurt, and now we're here. I just don't understand. Like, not enough has changed for him not to be.
So
like, he was a generational prospect, wasn't he?
He was viewed as a Myles Garrett prospect.
Right.
I mean, same.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the tier we're talking about here.
Generational. Like just an elite player at a position of need.
In a non-Joe Burrow year, he goes number 1 overall every single time. It's just Joe Burrow was in that class after one of the greatest college quarterback seasons
and they're
we've
not
ever
picking
seen.
up his fifth year. Like,
Yeah, very Washington.
As soon as we're done, I'm calling JP Finley, our colleague down at NBC Sports in Washington who covers that team. He does a great job. JP will know the story.
How's the minority stake situation going? I hope to get a minority stake in the franchise.
Conversations are ongoing.
Okay.
Conversations are ongoing. I'm trying. They haven't. The part of the problem is that there hasn't been declared a winner yet. Like it looks like the Harris Group is in the lead, if you will. But the Canadian billionaire whose last name I can't pronounce yet, I apologize, especially if you end up winning the bid, because I'm going to suck up to you desperately to try to get in. But he was on CNBC. I think he was on CNBC Squawk Box a couple of days ago, saying like, I'm still alive. Like, it's between, like, meaning to get he's still alive to get the bid. Like, they haven't, There's been a bid submitted, but it hasn't been. Anyway, so there has yet to be a winner declared. So
it's very Geno Smith. They wrote me off. I didn't write back. I'm still alive.
I'm still alive.
He's still the ownership.
Right.
Style.
Meaning he's still alive in the bid to acquire the Commanders. So we'll see. I don't know.
A couple more running back contract updates here. Jonathan Taylor said he'd be willing to play out the final year of his deal without an extension. Giants GM Joe Schoen said nothing's changed since we talked at the owners' meetings when asked about Saquon Barkley's contract status. And the Raiders, their GM Dave Ziegler said running back Josh Jacobs has not signed his franchise tag and will not participate in the voluntary offseason program.
Yeah, Taylor is an interesting one. I feel like Taylor has kind of been forgotten a little bit because of the shocking season the Colts had and the fact that he was banged up. I mean, it was just 2021 when he had one of the greatest running back seasons of all time, 5.5 yards per carry. Behind, by the way, the offensive line was bad that year as well. It's not like it just got bad this year. It was bad that year too. So, I mean, he could easily be the best running back in football this year, and he'll be playing for the Colts.
Yeah, 100%. We'll see what the Colts do at the quarterback position for this year. I think this is a lot of sort of off-season noise. Like, we'll see if we get to August and they're still holding out. But I guess the one I would be more worried about is Jacobs than Barkley. Feels like, again, Barkley, the Giants are, first off, he got paid well in his rookie deal, and he's had an up and down. Both guys, right? Both Jacobs and Barkley had up and down first, handful of seasons in the NFL, and going into, with the Giants, with the optimism, and they made the playoffs, they won a game, day ball, feels like Barkley, that'll get figured out. The Jacobs one makes me a little bit more nervous, but on the other hand, I sort of feel like, for somebody like Josh Jacobs, who I believe was draft pick 26th, so his rookie deal was not like a top 5 guy like Barkley's was, and now you're going to you weren't great, the first couple, right? I mean, like, you had a big year last year. It would be, I think, once you start missing games and paychecks, it feels like it gets a little more real.
The bottom line in this CBA world is for running backs, this is the only leverage you have. You could wait to sign your tender, your tag. You could not go to OTAs. When training camp starts and you start getting fined significant money, when it's your chance in that part of your career to make money. I mean, Le'Veon Bell's an interesting case to go back to because he eventually got paid, but there's just not going to be a lot of situations like that where the holdout ultimately works for you in the long run because teams do not pay running backs like that anymore.
And I'd have to go back and look at the math. But he gave up $13 million, with the Steelers to go to the Jets, and I don't know how much of that money was guaranteed. And I wonder if you sort of do the back of the math, like if he really actually how much of a win was that? And certainly from a career standpoint, like leaving the Steelers, where he was the focal point of the offense, to go to the Jets, which at that time were a mess and had a bad offensive line, and just Le'Veon Bell went from being, one of the elite players in the NFL to irrelevant very quickly. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the, autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.